Aloha, everyone, and welcome to another exciting day in the world of AI. The DAS crew has scoured the world for the latest, most interesting news in the AIosphere. And in this week's AI and Science segment, we're going to be talking about the inroads and advancements in Alzheimer's research. So let's kick it off with Andy. What AI news from around the world do you have?
Well, I want to introduce everyone to something that I thought was interesting, and then when I dug a little deeper into it, it was quite good, and it's from the U.S. Department of Labor, and it's an AI literacy initiative that's just been put out. It's called the Make America AI Ready initiative, and it's designed to help anyone at any level of introduction to AI literacy, the basics, AI 101, foundational skills, foundational understanding, importantly, to try to prevent the misunderstandings that many people have about AI and how it works. And what's really interesting about it is that it's a simple, free course, all on text. And you basically start out by just sending a text ready. You say ready to 20202. And I did that this morning, and I did the first lesson. And it's pretty easy. It takes about, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes to go through the first lesson. And it's enthusiastic and it's reading, right? And I guess there may be an app where it'll read your texts to you, but I don't know that one. And so I just read through it, and it was quite good, actually. Bite-sized daily learning lessons. There's just 7 days. So everybody should start it and try it. And I'm talking about everybody in the U.S. population. People who are watching the Daily AI show probably know all of these things in much more depth than will be presented in this. It's a collaboration between a company called Arist, A-R-I-S-T. I had never heard of them before, but they're a learning platform, a teaching and learning platform. But I thought it was very interesting that they decided to do it entirely by text. And there is in the text, by the way, on this, even on this very first one. So if you want to go a little deeper, go to this video, and you end up on YouTube looking at a video that's actually 2 years old, but it wasn't developed by the Department of Labor. It's by somebody else, maybe somebody affiliated with the Arist platform, a guy named Jeff Su. But it was also very engaging and enthusiastic and filled with infographics, really well produced. So it kind of gave you some additional information and context about the basic principles of AI and how it works. So I invite all of you to try that. Anybody who wants to try it, just type ready to 20202.
And is this a limited program, or ostensibly it's going to be continuing for the foreseeable future?
Well, let me share my screen here quickly and just show you that there appears to be a bigger initiative around AI literacy in the U.S. Department of Labor. And I don't know that this text-based program is likely to be the one that is going to go on, right? There'll be other means of doing this. But let me just show you what the U.S. Department of Labor publishes. This is their AI literacy framework. It's based on these 5 principles across the top: understanding principles, core concepts, exploring AI uses, relevant use cases, direct AI effectively, how to provide context to an AI, and how to create clear prompts, and then how to evaluate what's coming to you. Importantly, to understand how to determine whether something is right or wrong. So accuracy and relevance. And also importantly, the idea that you have to iterate. So when you're dealing with an AI, the first response is not necessarily going to be complete for your query, or it may have missed the mark in some way. So you have to kind of get engaged in a dialogue with AI. And then finally, some notes on ethics and security around AI. So they have all these effective delivery principles. So it was done, I'm sure, by some very competent educational, and training people out there, and I expect to see other programs come out of the AI literacy framework.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting, and it's kind of come out of nowhere, right? Or have you heard?
I hadn't heard of it before. Yeah.
Gotcha. All righty.
So the initiative that was signed or executive order came into being, like it came into what am I saying? It came into
existence. It was
no.
It's manifested. There you go.
No, it was always manifested. The date that it had to be put into play has passed. That's what I'm trying to say, whatever that word is. Sorry, everybody. Good Wednesday to all. So there are more agencies that are putting forth their response to that. How are they creating the environment for AI to meet what President Trump ordered in the executive order?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we'll see.
Implementation. Thank you, Greg. Yes. Implementation.
That's Cisco.
Oh, is it Cisco? Damn. Yeah. Thank you, Cisco. Right. Always giving Greg credit. Thank you, Cisco.
So Beth, what is your most interesting story for the day?
All right. Well, this isn't Department of Labor, but this is something that started as like, well, that's kind of curious, and then got a little funkier. So Bloomberg article came out talking about Peter Thiel's Founders Fund backing a company bringing AI to cow herding, and it was valued at a $2 billion valuation. Now, what it is actually a collar that the cows wear, and it gives the company is called Halter. It's a New Zealand startup, and it makes AI powered smart collars for cattle. The Bloomberg reports that the deal would value Halter at more than $2 billion. The round is still in talks. And this is just made for viral. What the heck? Halter system uses collars, an app, and what it calls the cowgorithm to monitor cows, create virtual fences, and monitor herd health. So it's real ag tech, right. And the Halter's collars guide cattle using audio, vibration, and virtual fencing. So it creates opportunities to manage movement without traditional physical fences or manual herding. And the bigger story outside of the punchline is labor automation, right? So how are we moving the cows, and can we move the cows with a reduction in infrastructure and labor? Pasture management, giving ranchers live data on animal location and health. Again, Bloomberg's reporting says that it's in talks to raise the round, and with the Founders Fund, Peter Thiel's Founders Fund, expected to lead it. So this is one of the stories that sounds like it's absurd, and then we get a little deeper into it. As a former dog trainer, I guess I still train dogs. I just don't do it as the main business thing. My question starts to say, like, are the cows in distress based on the signals that are coming from the halter, the collar? Because I'm assuming that part of what they're being able to measure in terms of cows' health would be stress signals like increased heart rate or temperature or other. I'm not up on cow signals of anxiety, but I would think those sorts of things. And it doesn't. So independent reporting on how the collars work and whether there's evidence of welfare concerns. It can deliver an electrical pulse the available evidence doesn't show that cows are broadly in distress from the collars. They just look like a simple collar. And we're sort of looking at, I mean, these are animals who are ultimately likely being slaughtered, right? So distress gets to a certain place in terms of like, okay, so what is typical in terms of animal welfare and care that we're doing this? But for me, then the big question became, what is the difference in setting up something, in taking something that has a visual cue of where your boundaries are, right? There's a fence there. You can't go in the next pasture. And if the fence is open, you can move that. That's a visual thing in your field. What happens when that is invisible now? Right? You go to the edge and you get a signal about it. But does that change? How does a cow define freedom? And how does a cow recognize the change in environment? And that started to get like sci-fi, spooky. Hey, are we all being conditioned? But it raised real questions in that context for me. So, well, AI story, cowgirl.
Right. Well, I mean, virtual fencing has been around for a while now, right? In different forms or implementations and things like that. So there might be some research in that specifically and how that relates. I think for me, what popped out in the story is the health monitor. A lot of adjustments to environment, feeding, all of these kinds of things when it comes to raising cattle. And so on the surface, it seems like, oh, this sounds like a good idea, right? If it's not going to be obtrusive, it's not, it's minimal stress, those kinds of things, but you're getting constant health monitoring of your animals so that if if you see the early signs of some disease or symptoms like that, you can address it a lot earlier. So I think that aspect to me seems the most interesting part of it. The virtual fencing part. I mean, I would like to know more about it, and then that concept of where the animals will just naturally be moved to, because it sounds like a cool application of this would also be, so when you say herding, is almost a what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like a permacultural aspect to it, right? Because animals and the land are in this cycle balance, right? They'll like there's sheep and goats that are used to basically mow down a field, right? And prep it for planting and things like that. And then of course their waste materials are used to fertilize the area and all those kinds of things. So there might be some interesting applications there.
And the chat never disappoints. So if you're watching this later, go to the live and show live chat, because they are doing great stuff. They're also correcting me. This really is Greg. Cows give milk, steers are processed. So cows are dairy, not going to slaughter. Thank you, Greg.
Awesome. Karl has joined us. Welcome, Karl. As we jump into the next bit of news, Danielle, what do you have for us today?
Well, I mean, it's not as fancy as cows, because now I'm hungry. Thank you, Beth, for that. But I like robots, so I like the bots, and so I went to go search. And I don't know. I know we love watching bots do dances and shimmy around and then fall down and be abused by people throwing chairs at them. It's always exciting to watch those videos. But Lucid bots just raised, small in a lot of worlds, 20 million. but big in the world of common sense, I believe. If you guys don't know Lucid or Lucid Bots, they do window washing. They wash the windows of towers and buildings and stuff like that. This is actually something where I think AI is usable in the real world. It's immediate. It's immediately being used. People are kind of going into it faster than you've ever expected. It's a growing industry. I definitely watched the founders of this company and other things and other similar companies up on TikTok and stuff. So what I find interesting is not only is it a real world application of robots being used and drones being used in real world application in the trades right now, and they didn't need a ton of funding. 20 million is not a lot of funding in the round of things. The hardest thing about getting funding was the starter of this company had a liberal arts background and in economics. So he saw a problem, said, here's a problem. I think AI could fix it. I think I should use drones and robots to do this. And in a short period of time, got enough funding to be able to start this. And now more and more companies are utilizing his tools and services and robots to be able to actually change how washing windows is changing. It's a very dangerous job if you really think about it, being up on those ledges, chemicals, all the other kind of stuff. It's real world application. And I always find it interesting when people say like, it will never affect my business and because I work in the trades or I work in a human house. I'm like, you have no idea what's coming down the pipe. Like this is such a simple and easy solution. And it's fun. Like you watch the guys do it and you're like, I want to fly a drone with a little robot shimmering and washing windows. That sounds like a fun job. Like you're paying me to like drive a robot around. I'm in. Like I'm fucking in for that and a bag of chips, right? So I find this really interesting. I just read about it this morning, and yeah, I'm really excited to see real world application in not the fancy news articles, the fancy things, the fancy dances, but applicable in the real world and actually executable. And I think that's actually how AI shines, in the boring. It's not in the cool things, it's in the really boring things that make a real difference to how we work, how we connect, how we play, how we do our jobs, etc. Good.
That's interesting, and sort of ties back to the conversation happening in the chat yesterday, Karl, when we were talking about, I think it was yesterday, maybe it was Monday, you can let me know, when we were talking about laying asphalt, right? As long as roads still need to exist, there are tradespeople who will have jobs. And Gareth was saying in the chat that there was a road that was done in China with a pure robot crew, and that it was good, it was successful. One of the things about the robot, and what I'm interested in, Danielle, is this in the US or not China?
Yeah,
is it in
North Carolina?
Okay.
North Carolina. We're not Silicon Valley here, like North Carolina.
That's awesome. One of the observations that's been made about China is that China produces the robots, so they have throwaway tech. They can afford to make mistakes with it because the production is inexpensive for them or supported in ways that are part of the investment. And so we don't see it as much here. I love that this is a local. Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I got to see what the window washing drone looks like, and how that actually works.
I want to invest. Like the side project that I have in my head right now, like I've already put it into my like, oh, this is going to be another business I want to buy. Like it looks like so much fun.
I'm sorry. This reminds me of when I was a kid, when I was dive bombing using these propeller planes, people playing lawn bowling, and I had these like connectors to these model planes, and we would dive bomb using paintballs to them. It would just be, and we'd add a screecher to it, so it would screech while it goes, and they'd look up and paint them with paintballs. I'm sorry, that's all I can think of.
We got to.
Yeah, I remember that. I used to do that in a very terrible manner, but that's what I used to.
Karl, we got to come up with a title for your troublemaker youth story.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes, it was so fun. We got in a lot of trouble, but it was like, yeah, we just these kind of anyway, I just remember that's what I was thinking about the moment Danielle said this.
Well, Karl, how are we going to transition from your dive bombing misspent youth to your most interesting story of the day?
You know what I was doing? So yesterday, and I shared this on the stupid things. I was actually I had some time to actually play with like, this is a kind of old Luma Labs. I don't know if anyone's used Luma Labs recently. And then I used Stitch and Luma Labs together because I have this presentation I have to do tomorrow. But I was like, oh, while I'm here, I was like, oh, let me develop a whole bunch of stuff on Stitch, which was really neat because you could develop prototypes for like, oh, develop a landing page, develop this, whatever this, and then you see how it actually would work on a mobile device on a web, and then you can export that using Figma or a brief or whatever, and then stick it into Luma Labs, and then create like ad campaigns for it, color scheme, everything. And I thought that was just really neat, what you could do. And so I just started doing Helldiver commercials of myself.
You didn't add music though from the
I did.
You did.
I did add music. So it's like, hold on. Let's see. I will.
Okay. We all want to see this. Is it going to demonetize the video because it's the official music?
Well,
no, it's not. I didn't put the official music because it would have taken me like an extra sec to rip it and then put it in, which I don't think it was. So anyway, I think everyone's used this. Do I have to share it? Who do I share it with?
You have to share it. Yeah.
Oh, it's already shared.
It's there. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So essentially, so I was like, oh, and then and it knew because I was like, hey, I want to tell them first. Yes, I want to. So it created the things like that, and I was like, hey, I made it kind of look like this. There is this one. This one, I thought it wanted me to make a video out of the actual image, which I didn't really want it to do. So that was weird.
As opposed to a source.
Yeah. So so this is it.
Of Super Earth. Democracy is under threat. The Terminid menace spreads across the galaxy. But you can make a difference. Enlist in the Helldivers today for liberty, for democracy, for Super Earth.
Anyway, so there's that. And then I was just, so I was like, hey, I want the color scheme so I put in another color scheme, and then it came up with this one. Oh, it's fantastic. Love it.
So if anybody doesn't know what Helldivers is, it's a video game series that is a satirical look at the whole fight against alien threats, much like Starship Troopers. If you're
it literally is how it's like the satire of like, managed democracy, which is essentially a dictatorship. And then, everyone's like for Super Earth. And anyway, it's super fun. But like, just the ability to create in Stitch, move it over to Luma Labs and create these things. And I didn't even spend any time actually like, developing these things out, like what type of video I'd like. So that was the default. I'm sure I could have made different types of videos, and some of the demos that would have were pretty good. So I think like, just thinking about it as a marketing team for a company or whatever that is, that's like, I remember enough in my career how long that took to develop all that. Now you can do that in an hour or so and start ripping out campaigns enough to get your content and your stuff going. It's pretty fantastic.
Okay. Yeah. Is that the new model? Like Luma Labs just came out with a new
Yeah.
model?
So I'm using the agent, the creative agents, and it's kind of neat how it's like it would just build it, and then you can adjust it. You put your uploads into it. Yeah, it's So I paid the $30 just to test it out for this month because I was getting tons and tons of ads on like TikTok and Instagrams, and then I was like, oh, okay, let's test this out. And I thought, oh, combine that with Stitch is like, wow, that's pretty amazing.
Well, interesting that you mentioned Lumen Labs and getting those more advertisements, because that could be a direct response to OpenAI shutting down Sora.
Yes.
Right?
No. I've been getting it took me a while to get I've been getting these for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just bombarded. Mind you, I was spending time on it, and I was like, oh, damn, this is pretty good. Damn. And I don't know. Oh, the video generation models, by the way, in there, I think are Kling, Ray. Do you know Ray something? Ray-Ban or whatever?
Oh, yeah. That's one of their models. Yeah.
Something Kling and something else. It was not no VO, no Sora, no nothing. So it's very interesting what they're using. And I don't know what the underlying creative agent is running on. I'm not sure. But yeah, but a good transition to OpenAI then shutting down Sora. You know, if you want to go into it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a little out of left field, right? So it announced that OpenAI announced that they were shutting down Sora, and this is the video generation app, right? It's been only running for about 6 months. And Altman said to the employees that they're winding down all products using its video models, which I think is an interesting note, because that might be a wind down of how Sora is being developed in ChatGPT as well. If it's all of their models, they're stepping away from the video side, then we may not see video development from OpenAI or ChatGPT products for a while. But also this ties to their deal with Disney, because they announced that they were going to have $1 billion deal with Disney because of Sora and being able to use Disney, icons in the app, but that has been exited as well. So the Sora experiment essentially has been shut down. I worry about them not putting in enough effort to cover at least one of the aspects of multimodal within their whole ecosystem. But it was quite a while before they updated DALL-E as well, from one version to another, and then finally replacing it with image. So I might be a little too concerned from like my own perspective, because on the creative side of things, but I'm not exactly sure how this is going to play out. They obviously didn't. It wasn't a money-making venture for them, and with them officially bowing out, maybe they just saw too much pressure from the other models that had come out.
I thought the story was more on compute. They needed the compute, right? They didn't. And the money wasn't like, it was like the 1 billion from Disney. If you kind of like 1 billion
in the grand scheme of things, probably not a lot.
Yeah,
but
1 billion. I think there was like a lot of like a lot of internal like employees were like, hey, that's taking a lot from the other stuff that it was a drag apparently on some of the stuff that they wanted to do, which if you look at it, like how, I guess from a creative angle, like I used it in Higgsfield, but I barely went to Sora app. Like who went to Sora? Like very few people.
Right.
App, and
right. Yeah. So I don't think it was a large contingent at all of their user base. Another way to look at this might be, this is a strategic move for them ahead of any IPO,
correct.
things like that. So
Yeah.
just cutting away some of the things that might seem frivolous on the books.
Yeah.
And that's basically the way I look at it. But
I'm
like
pretty-
you, I don't use OpenAI or ChatGPT for video generation.
Yeah.
I think that's the main point, is that Sora made a big splash. It had a big buzz going on for a week or two, and then it just started going downhill. There was very little interest in that. By comparison, many other, sort of video dedicated platforms out there had matched or exceeded what Sora could do. And so it just wasn't a vital product, especially in the context of OpenAI being overwhelmed by Claude's success in the world of coding, which is a much more lucrative enterprise market space than is video. Video is very small in enterprise. It's a little thing over here in the graphic arts unit, whereas coding applies across the board, and enterprises are spending a lot of money there. So Fujisimo, as the head of applications, probably saying, hey, we've got to trim things here. I like the idea that it was actually taking more compute than it deserved. And that's part of the calculus that they had. But more importantly, OpenAI is having to redress a strategy that they took, which was throw out a whole bunch of experiments across the board. And now they've got to trim it down to the ones that can actually make money for them, because that's at the core of whether OpenAI succeeds in the long run or not. Can they monetize the enormous investments they're making in data centers? And it's not going to happen through video.
And that's what Sam moved two departments under different people, and he's focused on raising money, developing the data centers, and a third thing, maybe partners. But also they've started to drips and drabs talking about SPUD, which is the new model, and they want they think it's amazing and going to change everything, going to transform the economy. I had a long conversation last night with AI about which economy, whose economy is this transforming? Apparently, that's always what it says. But the idea that it's time to really focus on that. I think they were concerned about Claude more than Anthropic and Claude and people using Claude.
To put some numbers to that, Claude code is estimated to have a between 45 and 55% share of the coding market, while OpenAI has 20%. And it's Karl will tell you, and I think the benchmarks show that Codex is actually better in many ways. But Claude Code has, delivered for enterprises. And so they have a platform there. It's going to be hard to dislodge them.
Because Codex is better at coding, but Claude Code is a better experience.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. Because I use Codex and I was Claude Code for a while, but I was like, and maybe this is just for coding, but also their agent experience too. And you know what's the big killer is the goddamn rate limits. That is the killer all the time. It's like, you got to be kidding me. And I don't want to spend the extra $200 max, which I probably could, but I was like, and it's everywhere too, right? It's like on your Excel, it's on your Claude, especially you want to use Opus. It's like, it just pieces out, and you're like, and clients are always saying when they go onto Teams, Claude for Teams, it's like, I can't work as long as I do in Chat every single time. It's like, I was like, yeah, you have to wait the 4 hours till you have to do it again. It kind of sucks. So it's that, and they just don't have the compute. I know I like to handle, I guess, that level. So I can always say it's like, if the two switched and one had 900 million users versus one had significantly less, I think there's two big problems. And say what you will, I have never been limited outside of Codex Spark on anything I use with OpenAI. Like the limits is nothing. Like even before I switched to full pro, I have never been limited on it. That's always a big thing from a reliability perspective.
Yeah, that would be a big obstacle to adoption and retention of use of Claude. I'm going to speculate that it's different at the large scale enterprise where they have forward deployed engineers from Anthropic, and they have made a huge multi-million-dollar investment. I don't think they're getting rate limited. In fact, they may be using Claude on their own infrastructure, and that's where Claude is making money. Whereas for small and medium businesses, I think you're absolutely right, Karl. The rate limiting problem would make it, that would be interrupting the workflows in a way that just could not be sustained.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like, well, when you work in, especially when you do it in co-work, in Claude Code, not so much, but when you do it in co-work, you're like, ugh. Like
that chews up tokens faster.
Yeah, chews up so fast.
Huge.
I don't know why it does. It's just in co-work, but if you switch to Claude Code, it's like it's not as prominent. But yeah, but I have nothing in Codex. And I can see, because you have the setting there on the actual rate limits. You're like, oh, here's the rate limits. This is how much I have this week. This is how much I have in the next 5 hours, right? And then you can see it. I don't know why Anthropic doesn't provide you, here's how much time you have left versus where. Like,
not really. It'll tell you like 75%. It'll tell you 90. I want down to the token.
Yes, I want down to the token.
I want estimation of what my request is going to make in tokens.
Yes.
Even if it's mostly a bar, that's
like, you kind of want that because you need to know. It's just...
Also, it's so okay. All right, I'm gonna rant for about 30 seconds here. The feeling that you get when you are vibing, when you're in the flow and you're like, oh, okay, I need this. Oh, okay, let me work on this thing. And then suddenly, sorry, no.
It's the worst.
And it also disappears too, right? So like it's like, oh, you only got 75%. It's like, oh, okay, I can do a few more. And then it disappears on the next message. And then you put in your message, and then it switches to that screen where it says, you reached your limit. Here's your prompt or your query. And I'm just like, man, that just breaks the flow so much.
Yeah.
So and Andy's pointed this out before. So I think it's going to be let me prep and ideate on like ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff. Let me get the final form, and then I'll switch it over to my Claude if it's going to be a better return on the output. Though, if Karl, you're not running into any limits with Codex, that might be the big selling factor when people get too frustrated with the cutoff experience.
So Codex is artificially doubled right now, and Karl is using the Pro plan, right? You still pay $200 a month or whatever.
Oh yeah, full Pro.
Canadian.
Codex or Claude?
Not Canadian, in American. So it's like 300 something.
Yeah.
A month. Yeah.
Sorry, what did I say? I said.
Which is artificially doubled, Anthropic or OpenAI?
Codex is artificially doubled through the beginning of April.
So this is also is this in response to Anthropic doubling theirs?
I think Anthropic doubled theirs.
So Anthropic doubled it outside working hours?
Yes.
Yeah, weekend. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, weekend and stuff. Yeah. So outside of the working hours, you get to
outside 2 p.m. East Coast. I believe that is done through 27th, maybe through Friday. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they were experimenting with something because Codex is doubled. And if they really stop when their information says that they're going to stop and Anthropic can double, that's an interesting play for them.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That's speculation.
I think you're right though, because remember the big push is, everyone said it, we're going to integrate ChatGPT the apps are all going to be integrated, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
I think the Atlas is going to be integrated, Codex and ChatGPT, which makes sense. And then you put it all together. What does that look like? How do you limit that? Like, how does that kind of work? Kind of through. Similar to how they've put it together in Claude. So you have the three things there, and yeah, I would be very curious to see how they because I think we all know the ChatGPT desktop app is useless, like useless, like does nothing unless you record. That's the only thing is you do recording, and you don't want your, you know, you know how your agent shows up into whatever you're using. Outside of Granola, I don't think does that, but like all invite fireflies and otter or whatever. Versus ChatGPT is like, just record, and I don't even know if you're recording. But I know in the United States you have two-party something for some states.
It's state by state.
Yeah, state by state. Yeah.
Yeah, in Canada just one. So yeah, one consent or two.
I will say that the frustration that you talked about, like the throttling constantly, I definitely whatever it is. I fell for it and I bumped up to 200 because I was so fucking angry. Sorry, I swore. I was so livid mad that it kept throttling me and stuff like that. I was like, screw it. Here's an extra $200. So not only do I have to put all my people on 200, I had to go on 200. Like, the amount of 200s that I'm paying out of my company pocket is moronic, right? But it's still cheaper than doing the team plan. So I got to go look at Codex apparently, or whatever, over there on the other side, and stuff. And then also, just as a shout out to my company that I use for recording, Build Better, they have a granola kind of thing on theirs, which is absolutely amazing. It's probably when I was using Granola for a while, and then when Build Better came out with their own version of it, I dropped it so fast. It was night and day difference. Night and day.
Interesting. I'm thinking.
So nice.
Wow, that's a retrospective for me. Build Better was something we used in early 2023, and it was really impressive, ahead of its time in many ways.
Go ahead.
Built by product management, folks, and it really incredible. I haven't looked at it since then.
Oh, go get it. The stories I can tell you about this company and the gossiption, like we'll gossip sometime, right? Just the amount of meetings that I've had with the CEO founder of it, and him like chomping on like noodles in the basement of somebody's basement. Like, you're talking true like founder 20-year-old stories going on. But it's probably the best. It's one of my favorite AI tools of all time. Like, of all time, the way it is.
So early on, it was clear that you needed to build a PRD, but most people weren't thinking about that in the chatbot era. But Build Better had trained their models on product management skills, and then they kind of pivoted, it seemed to me, to be focused on one key aspect of that, which is recording a conversation among product teams, and then being able to take that information and sift and sort it into the product documents and so on.
Yeah.
But I only ever used it to generate PRDs, and it was really fantastic at that, and way ahead of the frontier models at the time. So now I want to just quickly ask you, Danielle, for those people who are only hearing about Build Better now, what's the range of things that you use it for now? You mentioned the recording capability.
Yeah. So one of the, we use it for so many different things, automations, like the whole kit caboodle. It like always has been ahead of the curve of whatever's happening. It always seems to be ahead. One of the things I love about it, and if you know, it focuses a lot on enterprise, we're not enterprise kind of thing, but this is one of my favorite things because it's hooked up to Fume. And it's hooked up to voice analyzing and stuff like that. So I can go look at what's called signals, but go look at the data, and it will tell me where all the dropped balls were in sales calls. It will tell me micro expression kind of things like, hey, they micro expression, the client micro expression here, and here. It wasn't followed up one. They sounded annoyed here, but excited here. Here's some opportunities to close the sales more. Like that kind of conversation, that kind of data intel. Unbelievable. And I don't have the team that we utilize it as much as we can, but in the way that I could be utilized on scale, like imagine being able to like have the data come back and say like, here's all the, instead of having to build this all out, it's just automatically in there. And it's been in there for like 2 years. like we've been utilizing this data.
Yeah.
Like the amount of stuff that you can do in there, not just doc managing the projects, syncing with ClickUp, syncing with Claude, syncing with all your products, the MCP, the APIs, and all that other kind of stuff included into that. But just having the Hume on top of that, the emotional data.
That's good. That's cool. I
I
got to go visit Build Better again.
Go. I'm sure I have an affiliate link
use-
somewhere, but you can just say Danielle sent you, and I'm sure he'll go, oh, that's great. And, you know.
I remember when we were using it back in the day, like you're saying, Andy. But if I remember, like credit usage was a major factor. We kind of blew through that kind of thing. Are they a little more dialed in on that?
I would say they're dialed in. I think it just depends on how you're utilizing it. Like we're pretty dialed into it. Like we maximize those credit usage and stuff like that. I think if you're willy-nilly in it, it might not be worth it, right? But if you're looking to actually maximize all the things you're using it for, like that's where I find the benefit is the fact that I get so many tools and so many features that, to be honest, are way ahead of their time. He's really on top of that, of usability features. And I think once you have a team over 20 or 50, then you're really going to get your bang out of the buck out of it, right? So our team isn't at that point, but I maximize the usage that I have. I don't think if I was doing that, it would be the best for a solopreneur, I don't think, or anything like that. But to be honest, maybe that's a conversation more people need to have with him and say, hey, you need a solopreneur offer, or hey, you need to like do a different kind of thing. But one of the things that I really love is that we have unlimited, like I can add as many people that I want to my in there. There's no extra cost per person kind of thing. It's just how many calls do you take? So that's actually good. So if we just focus it on the people where the calls we need to manage, that's a way to manage those credits.
Gotcha.
And they're really open to feedback. Like I'm really open to feedback, and which is something I also appreciate. I feel like they're really hands-on.
Yeah, I do appreciate that in a lot of the AI startups or the AI focused startups is they have a lot more acceptance of feedback and conversations with where their users base. Like for a long time, we were using Opus Clips for repurposing content, and the back and forth on getting certain features developed was really easy with them. There's another product I use called Firecut for editing and things like that, and they're really good about the back and forth on features and bug fixes and things like that. And just because I want to take another little jab at them, StreamYard, right? You guys are known a lot for taking feature requests from us and implementing them as soon as humanly possible, right? StreamYard. Okay, cool. All right, that's enough being me being facetious. Before we close up the segment, was there any other news that people wanted to cover? I have a couple of quick bits, but does anybody else have anything?
Just one. Oh, go ahead, Beth.
I just want to follow up on the Codex thing. When OpenAI launched Codex and said it's available for free users and maybe edu users, it said paid tiers get 2x credits, which is the equivalent of that. And when they stop giving Codex to the free users, like it's a limited time, that ends on April 2nd. And when you first get in, when you first get into Codex and maybe Codex Desktop, because that's where I've used it, you get a little screen that says rates are doubled until April 2nd. But I haven't seen any real official reference to that lately other than the screen. So.
Gotcha. So we'll see what happens after April 2nd. What I really want to know is what is the insights that both Anthropic and OpenAI get from this. Oh, what happens when we double the rates? Is that good for us? Is that what we really expect from users, or is it we gave more to users and users will use it more? So we'll see what comes out of that. All right. So the two real quick stories that I wanted to cover before we move on is number one, this sort of goes in line with that Department of Labor story that you started off with, Andy. The U.S. Treasury launches their AI innovation series. So I didn't see too much coverage about this, but essentially it's a joint initiative between the Office of Financial Stability Oversight Council and the Treasury's Artificial Intelligence Transformation Office. And so it's going to be 4 roundtables convening financial institutions, technology companies, regulators, and experts develop AI governance framework for banking, credit underwriting, fraud detection, cybersecurity, and risk management. And so essentially the word is that they're saying that AI or the government is characterizing the failure to adopt AI as a risk to financial stability and national competitiveness. So instead of, really pushing, you can't make policy changes like on the state level, things like that, they're focusing on approaching from the institutional level, saying that if you're not adopting AI, that's going to be a risk to those institutions. So I think there's a lot more to see how that plays out. And then this is interesting from like a techie sort of thing. There's this company called Conundrums AI. They raised $225 million to challenge the fiber optic ruling or orthodoxy, if you will, in data centers. So if you don't know, the interconnected parts of all of the CPUs and GPUs and things like that seems to be the realm where there's a lot of new focus, because you need so much bandwidth for all of that compute to be processed and that information to be sent to the processors and then the output received and sent out. So that interconnected fiber, as you in this story, is primarily all fiber optic, right? Because that is the what's the word I'm looking for? That's the understood upper end or best way to implement the highest amount of bandwidth. Right? So this Conundrums company is saying, no, that's not necessarily true. And they're applying their technology, which is copper based, right? And they're modifying the signal wavelength or the single strength across multiple twisted pair or pairs of copper wiring. So if you're familiar with a standard Ethernet cable and things like that, it's a bunch of copper wires inside of it. So that they can get a higher range of data throughput through that standard of copper wiring, which is extremely less expensive than fiber optic. So the hope is their application of the signal processing over copper is going to get you the bandwidth increases that you need without having to pay for fiber optic. So a little deep in the weeds on this from a technical standpoint, but if we can do more with the existing technologies and infrastructure, that's going to lower data center costs and getting information in and out of those data centers. Okay.
So Jyunmi, one thing. Did you I don't know who was mentioning this, and I don't know if you've been paying attention. I can't remember who, but they bought so much copper wire because somebody, I think an engineer or somebody thought that they added a zero to it. So they essentially bought all the copper wires in the market, which spiked the price. But then I can't remember which company or which group did it, but they're like, hey, that's not how much we actually needed, but that bought all of it. So it's like, do we return it? No, we'll just keep it. So they just bought all of it.
Well,
just,
they might be ahead of the curve now.
exactly, right? It's just like my dad, always every year having boxes of had these things of salt. Oh no, that's salt. Toilet paper. He always had his things of toilet paper, and every year he was like, "Why do you have this much?" And he's like, "Well, you never know." And then that 1 year of COVID, he was like,
Yeah.
bang, he took a picture, he sent it to me. "See, I told you." And I was like, "Really? It took a pandemic for you to your wall of toilet paper to be like, that was the reason you predicted this?" Is like, "Well, I didn't predict it, but I just told you needed this much."
Right. Well, hey, like you've told us before, he's a long game kind of guy.
Long
right?
game.
Long game, right?
Long game. Playing the really long game, right? Like he's the one who has the salt. I was about when in the winters you saw. So in Vancouver, it doesn't happen like that. But the 1 year, he's like, "Karl," he took a picture again. All these people taking salt from his garbage bin. I was like, oh my god. Oh my god. See, I told you. That was
right. Well, hey, once a decade, being right.
Once every 2 decades.
It's right. All right. Okay, well, let's move on to the second segment of the day, 5 minutes before we're supposed to end. And that is AI in science. Okay, so Alzheimer's kills more people every year than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. More than 55 million people worldwide are living with dementia right now, and Alzheimer's accounts for 60 to 70% of these cases. The global cost already exceeds $1.3 trillion a year. And despite decades of research and billions of dollars in funding, we still don't have a treatment that stops the disease from progressing. For most of that time, the scientific focus is centered on one main target, amyloid plaques, sticky clumps of protein that build up between brain cells. The logic is pretty straightforward. Plaques appear in Alzheimer's brains. Remove the plaques, slow the disease. Now, 2 drugs that do exactly that, the Leqembi and the Kasunia, received FDA approval in 2023 and 2024. They represent the real progress in Alzheimer's research. But the clinical results have only been modest. They do slow the decline, but they don't stop it. And frustrating patterns keep showing up in the data. Some patients with heavy plaque buildup have relatively intact thinking, while others with similar plaque levels are severely impaired. Now, that gap has pushed a growing number of scientists to ask a different question. What if amyloid plaques aren't the whole story? What if Alzheimer's is doing something much broader to the brain, something we've been missing because we didn't have the right tools to see it? So a team at Rice University just published a possible answer to the question, and they built it with lasers and machine learning. So why has the current map been incomplete? So what the Rice team found is that it will help you to understand how scientists have traditionally studied Alzheimer's at the chemical level and what those limitations are. The standard approach involves staining brain tissue with dyes or fluorescent markers that attach to specific molecules. If you want to see amyloid plaques, you use a dye designed to bind to amyloid. If you want to see tau tangles, the other protein associated with Alzheimer's, you use a different marker. Each experiment looks at one thing at a time in one region at a time. It's a bit like searching a house with a flashlight that only illuminates one color. You could find everything that's red, but you'll miss the blue, the green, and the pattern they form together. Now, this method has been enormously productive. It's how scientists have identified core protein pathology of Alzheimer's, but it hasn't. It has this built-in limitation. You can only find what you're already looking for. If there are chemical changes happening across the brain that nobody has tagged with a dye, it kind of shifts how cells process cholesterol, store energy, or maintain their membranes. And those changes might stay invisible. And there's a second problem. Most studies examine small tissue samples from specific brain regions. That gives you a detailed snapshot of one neighborhood, but not a map of the whole city. So Alzheimer's is a disease that progresses through the brain over time, affecting different regions at different rates. And understanding the progression requires seeing the entire landscape at once. So this is kind of what the Rice team has set out to analyze, is the whole map. So the research team, led by Associate Professor Shengzi Huang and doctoral student Xiang Wang, used a technique called hyperspectral Raman imaging. It works by directing a laser at brain tissue and measuring the light that bounces back. Different molecules scatter the light in slightly different ways. Each one has a unique spectral signature, like a chemical fingerprint. By repeating that measurement thousands of times across an entire brain slice, the team built a high-resolution map showing how the chemical composition of the tissue varies from region to region. Now, the critical advantage here to this approach is that it's label-free. No dyes, no fluorescent proteins, no molecular tags. The brain tissue is scanned exactly as it is. That means the imaging isn't limited to pre-selected targets. It captures everything. The laser can detect proteins, lipids, metabolic molecules, all at once across the whole brain. The result is a huge, enormous data set and thousands of overlapping chemical measurements per brain slice across both healthy brains and brains affected by Alzheimer's disease in an animal model. Now, to make sense of that volume of data, the team turned to machine learning. So they used two approaches. First, unsupervised learning, algorithms that sort the data by finding natural groupings without being told what to look for. This step identified chemical patterns in the tissue based purely on molecular characteristics, with no assumptions about what was healthy or diseased. Then they applied supervised learning, training models to distinguish between Alzheimer's affected and healthy tissue, and to measure how strongly different brain regions reflected disease-related chemistry. So what emerged from all this was the first comprehensive, dye-free molecular atlas of the Alzheimer's brain. Now, these findings challenge a core assumption that has shaped Alzheimer's research for decades. The chemical changes linked to Alzheimer's are not confined to areas where amyloid plaques accumulate. They spread unevenly across the entire brain, appearing in complex region-specific patterns. Some areas show dramatic chemical shifts, others are less affected. That uneven distribution had not been visible under standard imaging methods. Now, two changes stood out: the hippocampus and the cortex, the regions most directly tied to memory and higher thinking. They showed significant shifts in cholesterol and glycogen levels. Cholesterol is essential for maintaining the structural integrity of the brain cell membranes, and glycogen serves as a local energy reserve that brain cells draw on during periods of high activity. When both are disrupted in the same memory-critical regions, it points to something beyond protein buildup. It points to a metabolic problem. The brain's basic machinery for maintaining cell structure and producing energy is breaking down. Huang put it directly, these findings support the idea that Alzheimer's involves broader disruptions in brain structure and energy balance, not only protein buildup and misfolding. The distinction matters for treatment. If Alzheimer's is primarily a protein problem, then clearing the protein should fix it. The modest results of current anti-amyloid drugs suggest that that's not enough. If the disease also involves widespread metabolic disruptions, changes in how the brain handles cholesterol, stores energies, and maintains its cells, then treatment strategies that focus exclusively on amyloid are addressing only one part of the larger picture. So this Rice Atlas doesn't invalidate the amyloid research. What it does is it expands the map, and in medicine, a more complete map means more potential targets for intervention, more places where a future drug or therapy might be able to slow or interrupt the disease process. So where does this go from here? This study was conducted in an animal model, not in human tissue. So animal models for Alzheimer's replicate key features of the disease, but don't capture its full complexity in humans. Validating these findings in human brain tissue will be necessary, or the necessary next step, before they can influence clinical decisions. But the method itself, combining label-free laser imaging with machine learning to build a whole brain chemical map, is applicable to human tissue. And the broader scientific direction it represents is gaining momentum. Across the field, multiple research teams are using AI to look at Alzheimer's from angles that weren't possible 10 or even 5 years ago. At Harvard and Mass General Brigham, a foundational model called Brain IAC trained on nearly 49,000 brain MRIs, and it's predicting dementia risk and detecting tumor mutations from routine scans. At UC San Diego, AI helped identify a gene that isn't just a biomarker for Alzheimer's, but an active driver of it, and then helped identify a therapeutic candidate that could target it upstream of plaque formation. At UCSF, machine learning models analyzing patient records have predicted Alzheimer's onset up to 7 years before symptoms appear. Each of these projects approaches Alzheimer's from a different direction, but they share a common thread. AI is enabling scientists to see patterns in biological data that are too complex, too distributed, or too subtle for any human researcher to detect on their own. That doesn't replace the scientist. Every one of these findings still requires experimental validation and clinical testing, but it compresses the timeline from observation to hypothesis in ways that matter when you're working on a disease that currently has no cure and a patient population that is projected to reach 150 million worldwide by 2050. The Rice study's contribution is specific but significant. By building a chemical map that captures the whole brain without pre-selecting what to look for, the team revealed patterns existing methods had missed. Wang described the experience as seeing the complete map come together. Patterns emerged that had not been visible under regular imaging. Information that had been there all along, waiting for it to be analyzed. So,
Absolutely. So many thoughts, and we're at the end of the day, end of the thing. So you left us here with this. Do we get to do a restart next Wednesday when I join back in and we start with that?
Well, for me, the takeaway is that not only is a new paper out or new research out, but multiple angles and aspects for building the research to cure this disease is the important part. There are different ways to approach it and different ways to attack it, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And because a lot of science is processing of information, that's the key thing we get out of AI. That's the low-hanging fruit for applying AI to science. Is now we can look at the billions or trillion points of data, which wouldn't take us decades just to look through with an entire team of people. That we can do it in a much shorter amount of time. And so that allows us to iterate, that allows us to try all of the methods and not just say, well, we think this one's the best, so we're going to do that for 30 years.
Yeah. Right. I would say let's add that and then the quantum computing on top of that, and ta-da, things are gone. And also my family has, my mom has the beginning stages of Alzheimer's. So I'm living with that already right now. And now all these research and studies, and I'm even when we were researching, whatever it was 3 years ago, I was like, this sounds dumb. How do you have, it was so narrow focus onto one thing, and you read those papers, you're like, this is dumb. We have narrowed ourselves into, we believe that blue is the only color you could ever paint anything. It has to be blue. And you're like, there's a rainbow of colors out there. Why does it have to be blue? That's why I love this paper, because it feels like it's the first time where it's kind of publicly coming out. like, hey, we need to look at the full spectrum. And also we have technology to look at the full spectrum. So you can't deny the idea of looking at all different angles of solving this problem. We are no longer going to be categorized into this one funnel. We can't stick with that because the technology now allows us to not only look at all things, but it's also forcing a new wave across the industry in the medical field that they're allowed to look at all these different solutions, which is what something that really excites me on so many levels is the freedom of being able to utilize AI to be able to find solutions to some things that we've struggled with for so long and have been narrowly focused on the results that could happen because of funding, because of time, and because of R&D. Like there's a lot of things that go into having to make sure that you're maximizing the funnel that you're in. I say marketing words, funnel. So like, no, whatever. But you know what I'm saying, right? I want
Right.
to talk about this a lot more. Who cares about robots? Like this changes humans' lives. Like, who cares about codecs in comparison to this? This is way more fun to talk about. So yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Somebody's on there saying they're struggling with it, right? It's hard. It's difficult. It's difficult to know that you're genetically prone to it. It's difficult to watch your family members and friends go through it. And the fact that it just keeps compounding and getting worse and worse and it affects so many people. Ugh.
So one of the things that I really like about this story, and people who've listened to the show for a while know that I was my mother's primary caretaker for the 6.5-year dementia journey, is that this is a population that the current state is hard and ends in death, right?
Yeah.
And this kind of research gives an opportunity for more, I think, like small anecdotal kind of studies. Because one of the things that we did with my mom, because she ran a preschool when I was little and my father was a minister, was music. We had children's songs and Christmas carols in common, and we sang them all the time. And music, even when she lost her words, she had lyrics, right? So, and we use it in all kinds of ways. We had a pain song, we had an exercise song, reusing those sorts of things. And I really love that being able to pull in the data of what's happening in people's brains can create some real initiatives around anecdotal things that people pass on when you're in like little caretaker communities, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Gareth could talk about for a long time too. Clearly there's something that needs to happen. Thanks, everybody.
And like Danielle said, this is a much larger issue. And if you wish to continue that conversation, please join the community at dailyaishowcommunity.com. All right, unless there's anything else, we are definitely way over time and we should wrap this up. So first off, I want to thank everybody for joining us in chat and sharing your experiences. And thank you for everyone who's going to watch this just a little later. This has been the Daily AI Show, episode 688, March 25th, 2026. Remember, click the things that make the dings and keep your minds and your hearts open. Aloha.